the other options, there's the surgery, which gets rid of it. Then there's what's called HIFU, which is ultrasonic, where they target an area with ultrasound and kill the cancer that way.
Okay.
And then there's another one called cryotherapy, where they target the cancer and freeze it and kill it that way.
Hello, welcome back to another Live at 5 here on Coaching the Man, and I am joined by another guest for this Movember session, which we are talking all about men's health, men's mental health, and of course testicular cancer, and as well as that prostate cancer. And today I am joined by a prostate cancer warrior, Adrian. He is an actor and he joins me now to have a chat about his story and his experience with prostate cancer. So welcome, Adrian. Good to see you.
Thank you. And you. And you.
So I wanted to start with just generally checking in with how you are feeling at the moment today. How are you showing up? How do you feel? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm actually very good at the moment. Yeah. I was diagnosed now 4 years ago.
Okay.
With prostate cancer. And in that time, I've spent most of the time on what's called surveillance, where they test your PSA level, which is a blood test.
Mm-hmm.
And if it stays below a particular level, then you're perfectly fine, rather than having to have invasive surgery.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, my level is under 20, which is quite high. But it's still it's 17.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to 20, then you got to have surgery,
Okay.
or other treatment.
Right.
So my treatment at the moment is perfectly fine, and that level has fluctuated between 14 and 17 for the last 3 years. So it's generally fine.
But your health is generally well.
Yeah,
you're not ill or sick, or you're yeah. I want to, I'm on surveillance as well, so I completely understand and I get the process. You go in, you have a blood test, you speak to an oncologist, they go, yeah, okay, see you in 3 months, and I'll send you a blood form, and you do it again. It's a little bit it's like going to the dentist for a checkup, if not even less invasive, because the dentist can sometimes be traumatic. But how did you become diagnosed with prostate cancer? What happened to get you to that point?
Right. Well, actually, my partner's father was diagnosed with lung cancer.
Right.
And he has never smoked, and he's been very well all his life. And he started to have a cough. And he went to the doctors. He also suffered from polymyalgia. And they got him to have a chest X-ray. And he'd had one 18 months before, and he was perfectly clear. This time he had another one, and it showed a shadow on his lung, which worried me a bit. So I went to the doctors, and they said, well, maybe you ought to have a chest X-ray then, just put your mind at rest. And a blood test, because you're over 50, maybe have a PSA test. And the chest X-ray was fine, but the PSA test showed up that what the abnormal level is about 5. So my PSA was around about 10 at that particular time.
Okay.
And so they suggested I go and see a specialist who did a test. He puts his fingers into your your back passage, and tests to see whether your prostate is enlarged. That's the first test. The second test is then to have one of a form of a biopsy. And with that biopsy, they found that I had what's called a Gleason level 3 cancer within my prostate, which is right in the middle. at that particular time, because my partner, she's a urology nurse, or was. She was a nurse anyway, so she's now retired. But she was able to see me through. Other people, I think, if they'd been told this, probably wouldn't have been able to take it at that particular time. But they had a choice: either have treatment and surgery, or continue on surveillance. And that was in September 2017. We're now in November 2021, 4 years later.
Yeah. And you're still on surveillance.
And I'm still on surveillance.
I want to ask, because I've previously been explained, and the prostate obviously is an examination through the rectum. They check it. And the prostate is, what I understand is, it's up there, but it's like, for all intensive purposes, it's a ring donut. And if it becomes swollen or enlarged, it becomes a little bit, the ring gets smaller in the middle, and it becomes more like a jam donut as such.
Yeah.
And that's when you've got issues with it. Is that right?
Yes. As you get older, it does grow. And one of the issues is that you need to pee more often. Yes. There's an urgency. But when that happens, it's not always easy to actually urinate. Yeah. To actually go. No. You're standing there for a while waiting. Yeah. Now, I have apparently I have the prostate the size of an 84-year-old, so it's enormous. Wow. It's 3 times the size of what it should be. Okay. For my age. So your symptoms of needing to pee but not being able to pee, is that a regular occurrence for you? Is that something that you live with daily? Okay. It is. Yeah. Yeah. You kind of get used to it. Yeah. When I first got diagnosed, I was actually started to be aware of the fact that I needed to go but couldn't. Okay. Always. Yeah. And I put it down to the fact that if you're busy doing something and you really need to go, but you just can't stop what you're doing, being on stage or something like that. Yes. You end up getting to a point where, when you eventually do go, and this is for anybody who's doesn't have any prostate problems, eventually do go, you're potentially in a position where you can't go straight off. Yes. And I put it down. Yeah. Yeah. So I put it down. Held it for too long that it's actually. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Yeah. So I put it down to that. Completely that. But so I kind of had that strategy to deal with that. Yeah. Is the biggest warning sign, or the earliest warning sign for prostate issues that would need further examination, is it the urine? Is it the issue with urinating, or is there other issues that you might find that are things that you might need to be conscious of and go, well, that's a problem? Because it's all well and good me saying, to other men, check your balls, but how does one get to a particular age in their life where they check their prostate? It's not. So how do you manage that? It's a good point. You can't check your prostate because it's within everything. If you're finding that you're getting up in the middle of the night, or you're needing to go more often than you used to, that is potentially a sign of something. Yeah. But really, the only real test of concern is to get a blood test, and if the PSA level is above 6 or 7, yeah, then you need to have some sort of examination. And it was merely your age that brought you to get that blood test? It was more my partner's father. Okay, so it was encouraged by the fact that you had. Yeah. Yeah. Sadly, he was diagnosed, and he passed away 3 months after the diagnosis. So that kind of worried me a lot. Yeah. You can understand. And I also have a friend who 6 months earlier had prostate cancer.
Right. So it was on your radar to
yes.
Your health was becoming a worry for you?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. At the time, I was doing a particular role as a director, which of theatre, and that was quite stressful at the time as well. So,
yeah,
whatever, you know, but it was more the fact that all these other people were getting ill or passing away, because my friend actually did. That prompted me to actually have some sort of test.
Yeah.
Basically, it's about blood test.
Yeah.
It's easy.
It's so interesting how a lot of illnesses, and certainly with cancers, when I speak to people, and it all comes down to just being aware of how your body is functioning today. What is happening today? And if anything begins to become like abnormal or continues to persist, I mean, like with lung cancer, it's a persistent cough for 3 weeks or longer. You know, with your prostate cancer, it's a more regular getting up in the night, going for a wee might be something worth checking.
Exactly.
But it might not necessarily be prostate cancer, but, you know, it encourages you to go, okay, my body, something's different, something's changed, and it's not just going away after a week. It's so interesting that just becoming so aware of your body and getting it checked when you know something's wrong can help you be in a position where, like you, and yes, it was encouraged by, I guess, you know, fear of losing somebody else, which I will hands up say to you, and you've probably felt it yourself. Since my diagnosis, people around me have been more inclined to go and get niggles checked out. And they've only told me in like the year following it, where they've gone, oh, I've gone and got this sorted. My own family have gone and got things sorted that they'd been putting on the long finger. Have you found that people have done that to you?
To a certain extent. I have 3 brothers, and they've been more concerned that me than themselves, in a way, which is quite, in one way is nice, but in another way you think, well, actually, have you got checked?
Yeah.
And 2 of them have, one hasn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of the things about this actual cancer is it's one of the most treatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to say that I got to a point where, with the consultant was pushing me to have some treatment, but I didn't want it at that particular time. And so I went and saw my GP, who said, well, you know, if you don't want it at this particular moment, there's no real need necessary to have it. But I wouldn't, he said, probably you got to realize that 94% of all men at some point, I don't want to worry you, but they have, at some point, they have prostate cancer.
Yeah.
So it's really quite prevalent.
Yeah.
And it's very treatable. There's, for cancers, they talk about a survival rate of 5 years, don't they?
Yeah.
For things. Well, I've been 4 years out of diagnosis, and I haven't had any treatment other than surveillance. So it's quite safe in that way. But it's also because I've known people who haven't gone and got themselves checked, who have the cancer has actually gone further, and that's where the danger is. It's perfectly treatable. It's perfectly safe. A lot of people have it. Go and get checked is what I would say, and don't really worry about it. Yeah, because there's lots of other treatments now as well.
Absolutely. And the thing is, as well, is that you're not, it's what's interesting is that you're not necessarily a cancer survivor. You're living with cancer.
Yes.
And you're living a normal life.
Yes.
With it. And I guess that's because you've got an eye on it. And if anything gets out of line, you can do something about it.
Yeah.
But if you leave something like testicular cancer is exactly the same. You know, mine showed up and it was like, okay, get that out of the way. And it's quite easy to remove a testicle. In comparison to anything else in the body, it's very easy to just go, okay, let's remove it. It's outside the body anyway. Let's take it out. And as long as it hasn't traveled, as long as it hasn't migrated into what we do, like, because I had a CT scan the other day, so it's abdomen, groin, chest. They just check all the places that the cancer is going to likely set up camp anywhere else. And that's when it becomes a problem. But generally, the source of it can be dealt with, and you can live with it if you find it early and you understand your body well enough.
Yes.
And that messaging seems to go for so long. But what is it about men? Because you mentioned your brother. What is it about men, do you think, that stops us going, I'm going to get that checked?
Well, I'd like to say male pride, but I think it's just a general fear that if they do go and get it checked, it's going to be something that they don't really know how to handle. I think that's very much the likelihood with my brother. I think men very much more are like that.
Yeah.
That it's not so much a gung-ho thing. It's more of a case of, well, look, if I don't do anything about it, it'll go away. I've got my life. But you see, the other thing about, you were talking about treatment. You had treatments, you had surgery. With prostate cancer, there are other treatments. There's a treatment which is surgery. There's another one which is a new one, which is ultrasonic.
Okay. You were telling me about this.
Non-invasive.
You were telling me about this before, about well, basically you were telling me about what your options are going forward before you get to the point of having to remove the prostate altogether, which is what you want to avoid.
I do. Other people would probably think, well, just get it out of the way and gone. Because the other options, there's the surgery, which gets rid of it. Then there's what's called HIFU, which is ultrasonic, where they target an area with ultrasound and kill the cancer that way.
Okay.
And then there's another one called cryotherapy, where they target the cancer and freeze it and kill it that way. So those two are non-invasive. And then there are other things which are radiotherapy and hormone therapy, which I don't want.
Gotcha.
But for me, there are actual complications for that surgery.
Right.
And that is because of the size of my prostate.
It's like you said, it's the size of a, how old did you say?
84-year-old.
Yeah.
So if I had the surgery, that would be the end of it. Because at the moment, as far as they can see, having had a number of biopsies, one which was actually very painful, but it showed up a lot of very good points, meant that the cancer is totally encapsulated in the prostate.
Okay.
And if it's there, encapsulated in that, and they take it away, it's not going to spread. But if I had the focal therapy, it would have to be a combination of the focal therapy and the cryotherapy because of where it is, because you can't quite. Because of the size of my prostate, they'd have to do what's called a TURP, because with both the focal therapy and the cryotherapy, it will cause a swelling. And if I've got a prostate the size of an 84-year-old and it swells further, it'll completely block my urinary passage altogether.
Right.
So they have to shave parts of the prostate down after they've done that particular surgery, just to bring it down to a normal level.
Okay.
So it would mean about 4 or 5 different operations to do it.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, for most people, it's not the case, because it's just not the focal therapy and cryotherapy are non-invasive.
This is what's so interesting as well, is that, your situation is so unique in a sense that your prostate is a particular dimension, and it's all the cancer is contained within the cell walls of the prostate itself, which was one of the early good signs I got from my testicular cancer, in a sense that the minute they did the ultrasound, they were like, well, whatever it is, it's in the wall of the testicle. So this is a good sign. So you're kind of like, okay, we got a green flag even this early on, which is really good. So your situation is so unique to you that you have all of these options ahead of you, that I think you said that if you try these other options before you get the removal of the prostate, but if you remove the prostate, you obviously can't try the other options. So you're more inclined to avoid having to have that surgery.
I am.
Why is that?
One way. Well, don't like the idea of having the surgery.
Yeah.
Just because of invasive. However, to be fair, having said what I'd said before, there is an argument to say, well, look, if I had the surgery, that's the end of it. And I would be off work for 4 to 6 weeks. Whereas with the others, that's probably going to be a bit longer. Well, probably 18 months over the...
Yeah. I mean, that's a big decision to make, because I think anybody would, and I can speak from experience, anybody who say you've got cancer and it's here, and you're like, I was like, well, get rid of it, take it out. I don't want it. Move it. But obviously your situation is different to mine, and you're kind of making a choice to prolong it, which I can understand why the people around you are more encouraging of get straight to the point and cut it out. But you're like not going to be beaten by this, and I kind of admire your tenacity.
Yes, there's a point where I'm probably getting a bit beaten down by it.
I can imagine.
Because I actually had I moved from the consultant in where I live, which is Shropshire, to a specialist in London at Charing Cross Hospital Imperial, because he's a specialist in the ultrasound, and so I'm now under Charing Cross Hospital, who are really much more open to different to choices, rather than saying, well, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, and this is what's going to happen unless you do this, which is what was happening in Shropshire. But they've been probably more open and clear about the whole process. If you have this particular option, this is what's going to have to happen to be able to achieve what you need to achieve. And in that case, you're probably going to find that it's maybe a step too far for you, because you're probably going to be out of action maybe for 6 to 18 months, one way or another, because you've got to have the HIFU therapy, which is the focal therapy. You've got to have what's called the TURP to reduce the size of the prostate, and then you've got to allow those to heal. Then you've got to come back and have the cryotherapy, and so you've got to allow all those things to heal. So in one way, they're now suggesting, well, maybe you might consider staying on surveillance or having a radical prostatectomy. The way that they do it in London is a bit different to the way they do it in Shrewsbury as well. So
yeah,
I think they use a penknife in Shrewsbury. That's a bit unkind, isn't it?
It is interesting though when you go to different hospitals. I mean, my urology is in one hospital, my oncology is another, and it's a very different. You do I I can only say if you're on surveillance, you get as much pen pal correspondence from the NHS as I do, maybe if not more, because you're currently in the process of making decisions, and you do get to the point where you you have to be almost a part-time unpaid member of the NHS to control your admin and make sure you get your appointments. And I admire you wanting to continue that, because I'm already over it. I can tell you that for sure. I do want to ask about the fact that you've got these options on the table, along with the idea that you've got a partner who is from urology and has experience of that area of the body, and certainly seeing people come in and out in varying degrees of succession. What is and you said earlier on that you were a little bit at the end of your tether, a little bit, it kind of exhausts you a little bit. What is the general mental stability of having to like live with it, essentially? Where, how do you feel daily or weekly?
It doesn't worry me, to be frank. I don't. It doesn't impact my life at all. But that's the typical thing of what we're talking about men, really.
Yeah,
is that I know it's there, but it doesn't impact my life because I've got other things to do. I think, in actual fact, it impacts my partner more because she really wants me to have a treatment, and her choice would be the prostatectomy. Because that's the end of it. It's done and dusted, and we can move on.
So many people will resonate with your partner's way of seeing it. I know that the impact of my illness on other people, I kind of put it into the sense that I know how I feel 100% of the time. And I feel like I'm very good at managing it. And I feel like if there was anything wrong, I'd say something. And I think you're very much the same. I don't get the impression that you're avoiding dealing with it for the fear of anything. You're actually very much ahead of the game with it because you're managing it. But I know from personal experience that I've definitely had heightened anxiety and lost many a night of sleep over the people I love and their health. So I can see why people kind of look at you and your family and friendship group and go, oh my God, it's a ticking cancer time bomb and it's only going to go off any minute now. And that's very difficult to settle. And I know from trying to do it myself and trying to convince other people, because the last thing people do when told to calm down and relax is calm down and relax. So how do you manage that?
Well, not very well, really.
Okay.
You've actually made a very good point, because I probably have been a bit unkind in that respect, because I hadn't actually looked at it that there are other people who might have a heightened anxiety. And you were absolutely right. With other people, I'm more concerned about their health than I am concerned about my own.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to take that into account, really. Probably as much, if not more.
Yeah.
My partner has her own. We're a couple of old crocs. She has her own particular illnesses, which I'm more concerned about than my own health. So it swaps over.
Yeah.
So in one way, it does us good to be worrying about each other.
Yeah.
But in another way, maybe she's very good at getting the treatment she needs. She's very good at telling me what to do about this, but I'm not so good about actually going ahead and doing it.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, how you get your worries validated by her attending her appointments and doing all of the things that they do, but yet in a way we as people don't realize how much we need to. I mean, do we owe it to people? Maybe. Like, do we owe it to ourselves? Definitely. But like, in order to kind of help settle those around us, if you open Pandora's box and say, look, I have this issue, and then you go, okay, well, let's just close it and forget about it. I'm okay with it. Now I've essentially shared the stress of its existence, but refused to do anything about it, and just left the other people around me going, is that box going to open and just ruin our lives any minute now? It's interesting that I kind of ignited that thought in you, because that is just how I used to think, and how I do think about the health of my family and my parents as they get older, my grandparents. Like, you just become a little bit more aware of somebody's, well, we're not superhuman. Like, we're not here forever. And I think we realize that about ourselves when we get ill, and you can become quickly comfortable with it. But it's very, very difficult to become comfortable with somebody else's potential demise or life expectancy.
Yeah, that's very true. You hit the nail on the head. That is, I mean, that's really interesting that one very quickly gets comfortable about one's own situation.
Yeah.
But you can't about who's close to you and who you love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
What would you say to somebody who was worried about another person in their life, or indeed their own health, when it comes to, getting tested for prostate cancer or any cancer? Is there anything that in your journey that you feel like you've learned that you would go, this is the thing that I feel has helped me the most in my time?
Actually going and doing it, because I remember for me that as I say, the reason why I went was because of my partner's father. But when I went and I had a discussion with my own GP about everything, the test is easy. It's 2 minutes blood test. In fact, my partner's had to go and have a blood test this morning, and where we live, it's a drive to the hospital where you have to get the blood test. And if the car park, you actually have to pay. You've got 20 minutes to get 20 minutes to get the blood test, and then get back to the car.
Yeah.
And actually, she was saying she got there. She was there a little bit early. As soon as she put a bottom on the seat, she was called in, and she was out within 10 minutes. So basically, it's very quick and easy.
No, absolutely. And I've had it, and the reason why I'm smiling and grinning, because every time I have to go to the hospital, I'm like, right, okay, what time is it generally not that busy? Because if I can go in, take a ticket, sit down, and I can get out before I need to pay for that car parking, it's a win for me.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. But see, the thing here is you actually have to ring up and arrange a time for an appointment for blood test. You can't actually just to walk in anymore. Sadly, you used to be able to do that, but you can't anymore.
Right.
But yes, that is kind of like it's a constant battle in our family. If we have to go to somewhere like the hospital, it is how we can get in and out without having to pay. But it's a case in point. 10 minutes there and out. And then the result you get a week later. For my journey, as I say, I haven't actually had to have any other treatment at the moment. But I could have had had it out, but there's no need. It's getting higher now, so it's probably better that I do have the treatment. But in 4 years, there's been no need. So what I'm saying is, get yourself checked. You might not have to have any treatment, but you might. And I think I'm a testament to the fact that I look and sound healthy, I think. So,
well, I mean, when we worked together in October, I mean, I'm quite vocal about my story, and it was only me sharing my story that you shared yours back. And I could not have picked it out of the sky if you told me, like, one person on this. I wouldn't have thought it, because for all intents and purposes, and like myself before I was diagnosed, you're healthy and well. Like there's nothing physically wrong with you. And I think we kind of need to get this image that we convey in our heads that, you know, cancer equals illness equals death. It doesn't mean that in every case. Medicine has advanced so much. And like you, I mean, I'm on surveillance, you're on surveillance. It's a blood test. It's a checkup. It's taking responsibility for your own health and for your own well-being, so that other people don't have to worry about you, and they can go, okay, I'm pretty confident that you, if there was anything wrong, would go to the hospital and get it sorted, which I think has helped me, seeing other people respond to me with my illness and respond to me in a sense that they go, oh, I had something checked out the other week, and it was only because you were so like good at getting yours and you have a success story that I went, I'm just going to do it, because if I find it and there's anything wrong, I find it early, the problem is very, very, very small.
Well, that's the thing. That's exactly the thing. And I said that I had a friend who sort of prompted me as well, because he had prostate cancer, but he didn't get it early, and I think he procrastinated quite a bit before he went.
Yeah.
And he went through all the treatments and everything was fine, but in the end, it had spread because it was too late. And that's the thing, is that if you catch it early, which has happened for both you and I, then you've got nothing to worry about. Yeah, nothing at all.
You have options. Yeah, and isn't it great to have options? Because there would be nothing worse than someone telling you have this, but we can't actually do anything about it.
No.
I think I remember waiting until I told people about what was happening, until I was told what my option was, so that I could then give them, you know, like you say, case in point, like, I have this, we're doing this, everything will be fine, make sure you check yourself. Do you find it easy to discuss this with your friendship group, with other people? Is it something that through your experience you've thought, I'm just going to take heed and just say it in an environment where I think I might need to? Or have you found that the masculinity of you has felt like, well, don't talk about it?
Well, what I don't do is don't say, hi, my name's Adrian Monahan, I've got prostate cancer.
You didn't do that when we met either.
But at the same time, I have no worries in letting anybody know that I have it. Because it's not a taboo subject for me. I remember when I first got diagnosed with it, I was told somebody that I worked with, who I thought I was quite close to about it. And they seemed to be quite dismissive of it. You know, oh yeah. So you say, right, okay, well, you've got it, fine, okay. Well, you have to deal with it, won't you? Which is not what I really wanted to hear at that particular time.
No. Because you put yourself on the line to be vulnerable, and it gets dismissed. That's almost as much of an insult.
Well, that's how I took it, actually. Yeah. But I guess it comes back to what we were talking about before, about people who are close to us, how they react to our health as opposed to their own health. And it's the same thing as you said, you wouldn't have guessed that I had this illness from working with me. This person just didn't guess, and probably was quite shocked and surprised, and then realized that, well, for the grace of God, go they. and maybe they ought to do something about it.
Yeah.
I have to say, I don't know whether they did, but
They could have.
that's
Yeah.
the thing. Is I can't impress upon people enough that if you catch it early and it's just a simple test, then you can be treated, and it doesn't mean anything that's it's not the end of the world.
No. Well, I, for one, am very glad that you are healthy and well and doing what you love to do and are very good at, which is acting and directing. And it was a delight to work with you and see you do that. And I'm really proud of you, but I'm also really grateful for you to speak about it, because as much as I speak about Movember and testicular cancer from my point of view as somebody who's been through it, it's really nice to hear somebody talk about so openly and honestly about the experience of going through the other male dominated cancer that we all kind of tend to ignore. And the older generation of people who are most affected by it are more likely to maybe dismiss it or maybe leave it on the long finger to then only have to become a firefighter for their myriad of different issues that become. So it's great to hear that early detection is a success story for this specific cancer as well. And I'm really grateful that you're like shining a light for people to get it checked.
Yes, absolutely. There was I think it was probably 3 years ago, where they did a blanket test of, I think it was firefighters. Yeah. In a particular area of the country. And they tested everybody in this fire station, all the men. Yeah. Not expecting any of them, because they were all quite young, actually. When I say quite young, they were edging from 30 to 55. And they were all perfectly healthy, but they found 2 people who had prostate cancer out of those blood tests. Wow. So although it is perfectly treatable, it's not something that is just people of a particular age. It's right across, and people don't know it. And as I said before, statistically, a very high proportion of the male population actually, in the end, have it and live with it. Yeah, and nothing will. I've been told prostate cancer itself will not kill me. No. So it's something that if you allow it to continue, it spreads, and that's what will cause the thing. But in the end, it affects people of quite young age as well. What is the you said earlier on, the percentage of 97%? Yeah, of survival. Is that what you said? 97%. Oh, sorry, 97% of the male population have a form of prostate cancer. Okay, or will have. Will have. Yeah, I think. And the survival rate is obviously quite high if it's detected early. I know it's 95%
Yes,
for
testicular cancer.
Yeah, it's very high. I don't know the percentage, but it's very high.
Yeah. It's very interesting. What is it that you think you've learned most about yourself from going through this?
Ooh, now there's a question. Going through this, I think I have been more mindful of the fact that I'm not immortal, which you kind of think. But also I have become more receptive to people around me who know what they're talking about from the medical point of view. And also less and less worried about the possibility of anything happening to me, because we do have a great the NHS is fantastic,
Hmm.
and it's really has been very helpful. And I feel that I can put my trust in them very easily.
Hmm.
I think that's the thing that, and I think when I first got it, I was thinking that I would be, worried about it and be going, "Oh, it's the end of the world." But I seem to have been able to weather it without it really particularly affecting me too much.
Hmm.
And I think that's what I've learned, is that take each stage at a time and see what happens, rather than preempting the possibilities of how it is, because you never know.
Yeah.
I think that sounds a bit confused, but
No, I think it's really interesting, because I was going to say, are you proud of how you dealt with it? Did you think that you would be as, well, not as whoa as you kind of describe it? Do you feel quite proud of how you've managed it?
I wouldn't necessarily say proud, because this is going to sound terrible, and I hope Debbie, my partner's, not listening to this, but it doesn't hugely affect my everyday life.
Okay.
So, and I don't totally mean it like this, but I don't feel proud of the way I've handled it, because I haven't had to worry too much about it.
Got it.
Because there are the options are there for me, and the options are there for everybody when the time comes.
I think you might be underselling yourself a little bit, if I'm honest, because, from the outside looking in and from hearing how you've managed it, you have not only dealt with it for this long period of time, you've managed to keep up to date with all your regular appointments. You're very aware of your body, your options, you're not ignoring it. And I think when it comes to pride and being a proud man with masculine energy, I think you feel like you need to have, slayed a dragon in order to be proud of yourself. But actually, you've maintained a relatively regular lifestyle whilst also managing your cancer diagnosis. So if I can offer up a piece of advice, is you need to start being a little bit more proud of how you've dealt with this and how you're dealing with it. Because I think with that calmness, I don't think there are many people that believe that they could do that.
No.
And I don't think you ever realize how you will deal with it until you're in the situation. So I'm certainly very proud of how you've dealt with it. And I've found pride in how I dealt with my situation, but more I identify my courage than beat the drum of my pride. And I guess it's a very egotistical thing to say, yes, I'm proud of myself, but I think you have full license to do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And certainly to come on here and talk about it and raise awareness and give other people the opportunity to not really be so scared to go and get checked out. And yeah, a finger up the bum and a blood test is better than the impending issue that might be caused for not doing that. And, and similarly for, testicular cancer, checking yourself and having that 3 minutes, 2 minutes, not even in the shower to check your testicles is going to save you and everybody around you a whole load of worry if anything does get found.
Yes.
And we talk about the mental health section of speaking about it, talking about it, being aware of it, vocalizing how you feel about something. Do you get a little bit nervous, anxious, unsettled when you're waiting for a blood result? No. You should be proud of yourself for that, because I find mine just goes like this until the point where I get the result, and then I'm like, oh gosh, I was really intense.
Actually, that's right. 18 months ago, no, it's 12. It's only 12 months ago. My PSA level had gone to 18.9.
Right.
And the consultant in Shropshire was saying, you now have to think seriously about the treatment that you're going to have. We think that you need to have surgery, because if it gets beyond this level, there's nothing we can do. And at that point, I spoke to my GP, who said, well, he's probably right, but you need to have another PSA test. And the next PSA test came down to 15, so much lower. At which point we found this new treatment, which is the HIFU ultrasonic treatment, which has been done in London. And I then had to go through all the same things. I had to do more MRI scans and had to have another set of biopsies. But the PSA test there, they explained that you've got a prostate of an 84-year-old. It's 2, maybe 3 times the size of what it should be. Therefore, your PSA level is going to be higher than somebody of a normal size in the same circumstances. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But you've got to bear in mind that if it gets to I think it's something like 22, then you've got to worry about it. But in my situation,
you suddenly don't have choices. So if it gets to 22, you've got no choice.
No, you could have some sort of treatment.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I might be wrong on that one, but that's what they've told me anyway. So my PSA level fluctuates between 14 and 18, and it can change from one week to the next. And
how regularly are you getting tested?
No, every 3 months normally.
Okay.
But I went through that point because I felt I needed to be sure that it wasn't, because one of the things that I have suffered from because of the size of my prostate is something called prostatitis. Okay. Which is an inflammation and an infection of the prostate, which is treated with antibiotics. But that can raise your PSA level as well. So if you have a raised PSA level, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have got anything that is cancerous. It could be
an infection,
which is why they then have to do the tests that they do.
It's interesting. So you could get a test for your PSA and realize actually it's just prostatitis. Is that what you said?
Prostatitis.
Yes. All these big words. Wow. You know, you could you could take a thesis in all of these big words. It's so interesting that everything that encompasses this one thing of prostate cancer, and I certainly feel a lot more knowledgeable based on our conversation, and certainly a lot less worried. Not that I don't think I got to the point where I felt like I needed to worry about it. But again, I feel quite confident and comfortable that I am very aware of my health without being overly aware or overly cautious. I mean, that you can go the other way, really, can't you? You can be almost a hypochondriac in a sense that you can be terrified and give yourself anxiety and all of the other issues that you don't need to have by just over worrying about it. So that's a real fine balance. And I think that fine balance starts in your head, really, and the language you use about yourself. You seem to have a very well balanced stability within your mental health. Does it feel like that?
Sometimes not.
Light and shade, David. Light and shade.
Yeah, light and shade, David. Yes.
I think I could talk to you all day about this, Adrian. Thank you so much. I'm sure there are so many people that will benefit from just our conversation alone. And if they have any questions, we will be sure to point them in the right direction. But I'm going to leave it there. I think that's a great way to finish. Thank you so much for joining me on Live at 5 for Movember month, talking all about prostate cancer. And we touched on testicular cancer and our experiences and all of that. So, whatever you do, if you're ever watching this and you're inspired to reach out to Adrian, I'm sure he would be happy to hear from you and point you in the right direction. But again, like I always say, Movember has great websites, great links, great resources for you to check out and find out more information based on anything that you're worried about. And just know your body. That's the only thing we can ask you to do. Isn't that right, Adrian?
Yes, exactly.
That's it. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, Adrian. And I will see you for the next Live at 5 at some time again, where we will talk about all things that we have done. And I'll see you soon. Look after yourself.